I saw you chained here. Are you okay? I'm not okay. Nobody wants me.
Nobody wanted her. That's what the vendor said when Sergeant Darren Cole stopped walking. He hadn't meant to stop. He'd been pushing through the Keth market on Vorath Station for 20 minutes, elbow deep in the usual noise, merchants screaming prices, Dreth traders arguing over salvage weight, the thick chemical smell of whatever the Gorvani were cooking 3 stalls down. He hadn't meant to stop, but he did. Because there, between a rack of expired nutrient cartridges and a bin of cracked engine housings, sat a woman, chained to a post by a collar that looked like it had been welded shut, and she was staring directly at him. Not at the crowd, not at the floor, at him, like she'd been waiting. Before this story is done, you're going to understand 3 things. First, why every species in that market walked past her, and why the one creature built with the least tactical logic in the galaxy didn't. Second, what she actually was, because Chained Alien Woman doesn't even begin to cover it. The galaxy had a word for her kind. It wasn't a kind word. And third, what happens when you make an enemy out of something the entire conclave of worlds decided was too dangerous to exist. This is the story of Sergeant Darren Cole, an alien named Sale, and the single decision that changed the political geography of the known galaxy. Stay with me. It starts in a market. It ends in fire. The chain wasn't symbolic. Let me be clear about that. It was military-grade ferrite alloy, the same material used to contain fusion cores on deep space haulers. It ran from the post to the collar around her neck in a single, unbroken loop. And it was thick enough that Cole's hand couldn't close around it. Whatever she was, someone had decided ordinary restraints weren't going to cut it. She didn't look dangerous. That was the first contradiction Cole noticed. She looked exhausted. Her skin had a faint, luminescent silver-blue quality to it, like starlight filtered through still water. But the glow was dim, flickering, the way a dying battery flickers before it gives out completely. Her hair, what Cole could only call hair, was white and coiled close to her skull. Her eyes were silver, fully silver, no pupil, no iris distinction. Just 2 mirrors and a tired face. She was humanoid, mostly. Her proportions were slightly off. Too tall, too long-limbed, fingers 1 joint too many. But she sat with a posture that was unmistakably deliberate. Spine straight, chin level. Dignified, despite everything. Don't touch the Velhari. Cole hadn't reached out. He'd barely moved. But the vendor materialized beside him anyway. A Keth male, gray-skinned, 3 eyes. The middle one mechanically augmented. He was holding a sack of something that smelled aggressively of ammonia, and he looked deeply inconvenienced. I wasn't going to touch her, Cole said. Good. Nobody does. Nobody buys. You want navigation chips? I have good navigation chips, fresh off a Halcyon freighter. The vendor was already turning. Why is she here? The Keth stopped, turned back, looked at Cole the way you look at someone who's just asked why fire is hot. She's for sale. Why does no one want her? A pause. The vendor shifted the sack to his other shoulder. She's Velhari, he said, as if that answered everything. And in that market, on that station, to every species present? It did. Here's what Cole knew about the Velhari, standing there in that market. Nothing. Here's what every other species on Vorath Station knew. The Velhari were old. Not old the way civilizations are old, not centuries, not millennia. Old the way geological formations are old. The xenoanthropological record placed Velhari civilization at somewhere between 40 and 60,000 years before the current galactic calendar. For context, humanity had been in space for less than 300 years. The Keth, considered one of the elder races, had been spacefaring for 12,000. The Velhari had been out here for longer than most current species had existed at all. And then, approximately 9,000 years ago, they vanished. Not all at once. Not a single catastrophic event. They just withdrew. Station by station, system by system, they left the galactic commons, shut down their relay beacons, stopped responding to communications, abandoned their trade routes. The conclave of worlds had debated what happened for centuries. Disease? Ascension to a higher plane? Self-inflicted extinction event? Nobody knew. What they did know, what the historical record was very clear on, was what the Velhari had been before they disappeared. What their civilization had been built on. Velhari didn't just communicate. They resonated. Their neural architecture was fundamentally different from every other known sapient species. They didn't process language as external symbol systems, sound mapped to meaning, mapped to concept. They processed it as direct emotional and cognitive transfer. When a Velhari spoke to you, if they chose to, you didn't hear words. You felt the meaning, directly. No translation layer, no ambiguity. You understood, in your bones, what they intended. And when they wanted to, they could do the reverse. They could read you. Not your surface thoughts, not like a mind reader in a bad science fiction story. Deeper than that. They read your intent, your truth, the emotional architecture underneath everything you said. You could not lie to a Velhari. Biologically, structurally, the deception simply could not survive the transfer. Now you understand why every species in that market kept walking. And now you have to ask the question Cole asked next. What was one doing here, chained to a post, being sold for scrap prices by a Keth vendor who didn't even want to talk about her? Cole had 400 credits on him. It was supposed to cover resupply, power cells, ration packs, a replacement coolant seal for the Meridian's secondary engine housing. He'd been off duty for 6 hours. His CO had told him to be back aboard by 1800 station time. It was 1620. He turned to the vendor. How much? The Keth vendor stopped walking again, turned around, slower this time. All three eyes on Cole. You're human. That obvious? Humans are very soft, the vendor said. He didn't seem to mean it as an insult, more of an observation, a geological fact. And very feeling. How much? Cole said again. The vendor stared at him for a long moment. Then he named a price. It was 80 credits less than Cole had in his pocket. Cole didn't negotiate. He didn't try to talk the price down. He didn't weigh the decision against his ration budget or his cooling seal or the fact that he had absolutely no idea what he was going to do with a 9,000-year-old alien woman once he had her. He just paid. And for the first time since he'd spotted her, the woman moved. Her head tilted just slightly, just a few degrees. And something in her expression shifted. Not surprise, not relief. Something more complicated than either. Cole couldn't name it then. He'd name it later. He had time. The Keth vendor produced a key for the collar. It was an old mechanical key, which felt wrong given the fusion-grade chain. But the mechanism clicked, and the collar fell away, and she stood up. All the way up. She was easily 2 heads taller than Cole. Limbs unfolding like something that had been compressed for too long. She stood in the market and looked at him. Silver eyes, full and still. She said nothing. Cole had read enough, a hasty 3 minutes of station datapad searching while the vendor counted credits, to know that Velhari didn't default to spoken language. Their resonance communication was primary. Spoken language for them was a second layer, something they'd learned to use with species who couldn't receive resonance. He also knew that he should, theoretically, be able to receive basic emotional resonance if she chose to project it. Whether that was safe for a human brain was apparently still being studied. "My name's Cole," he said. "Sergeant Darren Cole, UES Meridian. I don't know what you need right now, but I'm guessing it's not to stay here." She looked at him for 3 full seconds. Then she said, in perfect, unaccented galactic standard, "No, it is not." Her name was Sael. She told him that much in the first 5 minutes, walking through the market to the station's transit corridor. She walked close to the walls, away from the crowd, not like she was afraid, more like she was managing something, keeping a deliberate buffer between herself and the stream of bodies. Cole learned later that markets were extremely loud for Velhari, not in sound, in emotional signal. Hundreds of beings transacting, arguing, wanting things, resenting prices, feeling hunger and greed and boredom all at once. It was the equivalent of standing inside a running jet engine. She'd been in that chain for 12 days. "How did you end up there?" Cole asked. Sael was quiet for a long moment. "I made an error," she said finally. "What kind of error?" "I was seen." She said it simply, without drama, like it explained everything. And it did. Cole was starting to understand. For a Velhari, for a species the Conclave had quietly declared extinct and were desperately hoping stayed that way, being seen was the worst possible outcome. He asked the obvious question. "Why does the Conclave care so much? You read emotions, that's not—" "It's not what I read," Sael said. "It's what I know." Cole stopped walking. She stopped too, turned. Her silver eyes met his, and he felt something. Not like a thought dropped into his head, nothing that dramatic. More like standing next to an open window and feeling which way the wind is blowing. A sense of direction, of weight. She was giving him a choice. He felt it clearly. She could tell him. And if she did, everything got complicated. She was offering him the option to not know. Cole had been in the United Earth Space Forces for 11 years. He'd made a career out of selecting the complicated option. "Tell me," he said. Sael held his gaze for a moment. The Velhari did not withdraw from the galaxy 9,000 years ago because of disease, or ascension, or war with an external threat. She paused. "We withdrew because we discovered what the Conclave of Worlds was doing, what it had been doing since its founding, and we refused to be complicit." Silence. What was it doing? "Selecting," she said. "Deciding which species survived first contact. Deciding which were assessed as threats and quietly discouraged from developing further. There are 41 species that should exist in this galaxy who do not. The Conclave has their extinction records. They are marked as natural events." A pause. The Velhari knew because we could read the architects. We read their intent directly. No plausible deniability, no diplomatic language, just the truth, clean and whole. She paused again. "They found us very inconvenient. So they tried to wipe us out?" The slight curve at the edge of her mouth might have been a smile. "They tried. We had 9,000 years of warning. We hid. We are very, very good at hiding." She tilted her head. "I was, as I said, less good than I should have been. Here's the thing about humanity that the Conclave of Worlds had never quite modeled correctly. Every other species that had discovered the Conclave's history of quiet extinction had done one of 3 things. They panicked, they capitulated, or they died. The Velhari, ancient, powerful, perceptive, had chosen a fourth option: hide and survive. Perfectly rational, overwhelmingly sensible, humanity did a fifth thing. They got angry. And then they got organized. Cole brought Sael aboard the Meridian at 1754 station time, 6 minutes before curfew. He walked her through the airlock, past two very surprised junior crew members, directly to the office of Commander Helena Vasquez, who was in the middle of eating a container of rehydrated noodles and reading maintenance reports. Vasquez listened. She was very still while she listened, which Cole had learned over 3 years meant she was thinking hard. She let Sael speak. She didn't interrupt. When it was over, she set down her noodles, folded her hands on the desk and said, "Can you prove it?" "I can do better than prove it," Sael said. "I can show you the architects. Every senior conclave officer in this sector carries the memory of what they are and what they've done. I can read that truth and I can give it to you as direct testimony. Your neural architecture." She glanced at Cole. "Humans are more receptive than most species. Your emotional processing is broader band. I can show you the memory as I receive it. Your recording equipment can capture the physiological response. It becomes an evidentiary record no court can dismiss as translation error." Vasquez looked at her for a long time. "You're asking us to take on the entire conclave of worlds." "I'm offering you the tool to do it," Sael said. "Whether you take it on is a human decision." Another silence. Vasquez looked at Cole. He shrugged. "She read me in the market, Commander. I know what she is. She's not lying." "I know she's not lying," Vasquez said quietly. "That's not what I'm thinking about." She stood up, went to the window. Vorath, station hung outside, lit amber and white. "I'm thinking about 41 species. I'm thinking about what it means if we don't." She turned back. "Captain Marsh is going to hate this," she said. "Yes, ma'am," Cole agreed. "He's going to hate it, and he's going to authorize it anyway because Marsh has hated every mission that mattered and done every one of them." She hit her comm. "Vasquez to bridge. Get me Captain Marsh, Comms Officer Tren, and the JAG legal channel to Earth Command. And someone bring me more noodles. I'm going to be here a while." What followed, in the months after that night, was not fast. It was not clean. It was not a single dramatic confrontation where the heroes showed up with evidence and the villains crumbled. That's not how it works. That's never how it works. What happened was, humanity lawyered up, and then humanity dug in. Earth Command authorized a full legal investigation. The UES Diplomatic Corps, described by the Keth ambassador as aggressively procedural and by the Dreth Council as distressingly persistent, began pulling every conclave archive they could access. 3 conclave senior officers agreed to Sael's resonance testimony when they understood the alternative was a unilateral human broadcast of everything Sael already knew. The conclave was not destroyed. That's not a realistic ending, and this isn't that kind of story. It was restructured, watched, reduced from an unchecked governing body to something more like an audited institution, with humanity holding 1/4 of the permanent oversight seats. It wasn't enough. It was more than 0. 2 of the 41 extinct species had surviving populations in hiding, not unlike the Velhari. Small groups, scattered, afraid. They made contact after the broadcasts started. They came forward because someone had finally said, out loud, in an official capacity, with legal standing, "We know what happened to you. It was wrong. It is documented, and the people responsible will be named." Those words were Sael's. Drafted by her, approved by Earth Command, transmitted on every open conclave frequency simultaneously. Cole heard it from the Meridian's mess hall, coffee going cold in his hand, the whole crew silent and listening. Nobody wanted her. That's what the vendor said. And he was right. Every species in that market, the Keth, the Dreth, the Gorvani, species that had been spacefaring for thousands of years longer than humans. They all knew better. They all understood the danger, the political weight, the enormous grinding machinery that would come looking if you touched this. They were smarter than Cole, more experienced, better calibrated to the realities of galactic politics. And they walked past. Cole stopped. Not because he'd run a strategic analysis, not because he'd assessed the risk-reward ratio. He stopped because she was chained to a post and she was looking at him, and something in his chest said, "That's wrong, and you're going to do something about it." That's not strategy. That's not tactical. It's barely even logic. It's just stubbornly, inconveniently, very specifically human. The Conclave had run its models on humanity, had assessed the species emerging from the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star. Soft, emotional, given to sentiment, prone to irrational attachment. They'd assessed it as a weakness. They'd miscategorized. If you want more stories like this, humanity doing the irrational, inconvenient, impossible thing that changes everything, hit subscribe. Drop your favorite HFY scenario in the comments. I read everyone. And if you want to go deeper right now, the next story is right there on screen. A human crew that got listed as the most dangerous entity in a war they didn't start. I'll see you in that one.